Hi guys, welcome to our webinar for today. Our topic is going to be breaking free and moving forward, overcoming internal barriers to independence. My name is Nicole Rolon-Caro, and I am the owner and founder of Emerging Adulthood Consulting, and I welcome you to my webinar today. Thank you for being with us today, and I'm going to go ahead and get started. So, invisible roadblocks. What's really holding us back? What I mean by this is that sometimes when you are growing into your adult, and you're becoming your own person and going into your next endeavors, sometimes life kind of hits you with some different roadblocks. Obviously, this is how we learn, this is how we grow, this is how we flourish into different things in our life, and this is what leads us to maybe our career path, our social path, whatever that brings to us as a family or as a unit or someone as going into their next endeavors. So sometimes what these are going to look like is fear of failure, self-doubt, people pleasing, or perfectionism. I don't know if you resonate with any of these, but I know as you're going into your 20s or going to college or going into your first job, sometimes that fear of failure is that little talking part of your brain where you're just like, I don't think I'm going to be able to handle this, or I don't think I'm going to be able to handle this job. I don't think I could get on that road today. I don't think I'm going to be able to handle these certain tasks. The self-doubt part is going to be, hey, I rely on you to kind of do this, but you're starting to doubt yourself on whether you're able to actually mow the lawn, or are you actually able to change the oil on your car? Are you going to be able to pay your own bills? Being ready for those adulthood sets in your life, sometimes that little person in the back of your head is just giving, not being your best cheerleader. That's what that means from right there. People pleasing. Young adults always finding that fine line between wanting to be good and thinking about like how being in kindergarten and you want to be that best student student to your teacher and being able to, help your parent when you want to, be able to earn some type of reward. That part is such a hard concept as young adults getting into their next pieces of life that they struggle with those things. Just being able to handle, hey, like I don't want to put these boundaries there because they're worried of maybe being, ridiculed or maybe being told, hey, why are you not doing this? Or why are you being lazy? Of those, those sort of things that kind of come to their mind when they're talking. Perfectionism. Oh my gosh, I cannot talk today, but please just bear with me. The pressure of doing it right, being able to earn that title in their world where they feel like they're able to handle certain things and being able to, you give them some type of task and they want to make sure that they align and they do the right thing for you at that time. But honestly, you're just putting that roadblock on them, or they're putting that roadblock on themselves that doesn't exist. If they don't have the frontal lobe part to know, hey, I got the reasoning skills to be able to handle X, Y, and Z, but really they've never done anything before that's going to lead them to that part. So how are they going to be able to know that they need to achieve it to this level, So being able to handle those certain components is very vital. And I just realized I might be blocking some certain words on here, but I will be able to send this webinar out to anyone who's wanting a copy. So just let me know at the end of this, and I will make sure that you get a copy. But I just wanted to kind of hit those 4 points because these often look like they're being careful, but they are honestly limiting their own growth at this point. When they are hitting each one of these, or if they're hitting just one in particular, this is what's hindering their own growth. And it's for you to help them understand that these are just roadblocks and we need to kind of take those away. So I'll get more into that later on in this webinar, but I kind of wanted to just hit this as the main basis of our conversation for today. So the timeline trap, and I'm sure we all have experience of what this is. The timeline trap, it is society says, it is what life tells us that we need to follow, but really it's make-believe, guys. It's not real, You don't have to have a college degree by 22. You don't have to go straight to college at 18 if you're not ready. You don't have to have a job, a full-time job or a career path chosen by 25. Sometimes we change career paths, as we get older and all those things, and that's okay. And we need to be okay with being okay with that. Society says we need to graduate, go to college, get a career, marriage, family, and sometimes those come out in different ways. That comes out all crisscross, and that's okay if that happens, whether you get a family first, and then career, and then marriage, and then college, or it's however you think is going to be working for you at the time that you are at. It's just where meet you where you're at and what is going on and how can I help you? But life doesn't always have to follow a checklist. It just doesn't. And it's not going to always fit into a perfect puzzle. Whether the puzzle is about working with a family, whether that puzzle is, working in the community, whether that puzzle is, hey, I just want to graduate from high school and I just want to be able to travel a little bit and maybe work and do all those things. And that's okay if that's what you want to do. And that's okay, if that's what your young adult wants to do. I'm talking to both here in case there's someone else who watches this and they're just a young adult just trying to kind of grasp what I'm talking about. But honestly, it's okay if that's what it is. As long as you are being self-fulfilling for what you need to be handling, you're handling your own business and you are being self-efficient in your own ways. That is all that matters. But I'll get more into that too as we get more into this, but that was what this timeline trap is all about. Just sticking to what society has told us or taught us that this is what it needs to be. It's just a bunch of hooey, and we don't have to follow that timeline. The weight of expectations. So this ties into that same kind of concept, timeline trap. What expectations are they living for? What is the young adult actually having to follow through on? Is it family pressure, cultural norms, fear of disappointing others? That idea of like, for me, for instance, I was the first one in my family to graduate from college, and that pressure of just knowing that and not having any really big guidelines on what to expect going to college was pretty hard on me. I had no idea what to expect. I went to my first year of college and I completely flunked it because I had no idea what the heck I was walking into. Now, that's not my family's fault. They didn't know, but they just knew that college was there. College was, you have to go to it. That was put into my brain from a young age. So I knew that, but I walked into the doors and had no idea what the heck I was walking into, and I was lost as a duck. I'm just telling you right now. And having that pressure, not that I did not want to go to college, it was just I needed a little bit more guidance on what that was going to look like. And that wasn't out there at the time. Counselors, guidance counselors were not really talking about it. And I listened to the best of my ability and I learned with the best of my ability, but I had to really sit there and reevaluate where I was coming from and to make sure that I wasn't going to fail again. Um, cultural norms are cultural norms are going to be, um, just society's way of just saying, hey, this is how we are, coming into this. I have my friends going to college. I have my friends going into, the military. I have friends going into some different aspects of life, and I want to be able to follow that. Or maybe it's your culture as itself. Like maybe you're Hispanic, whether you're in the Black community, whether you're in the white community, whatever that looks like in your family cultural norm, that is something that could weigh heavy on a young adult as they go into their next endeavors. It's really hard when you have those things. And then when you give them that fear-based of wondering, hey, I'm going into this and they're scared and they're worried about disappointing you. They're worried about disappointing the family. They're worried about disappointing their friends. They're worried about disappointing themselves. And putting that fear, it's not helpful for anyone. It's not helpful for the family. It's not helpful for them. It's not helpful for you. And then that kind of really puts more roadblocks in the way. And we really don't want to do that. And that's something where we need to kind of reevaluate, really meet where you're at and find out what is it that they want to do. Help them sort those internal voices, that outside pressure, turn off that noise and just really meet them with where they want to go with the next few years of their life, and be that guiding force. So cutting through the noise. Get clear on what matters, what values guide their choices, what's their actual next best step. Encourage reflection or a reaction. So I'll talk a little bit more on these points. Okay. So what values guide their choices, right? So what is a value of them? What's a value for you may not be the same value for them. And you have to be okay with that because they're not going to have the same life experiences as you, and they're not going to be exactly where you are at today. Where think of yourself maybe 20 years before or maybe 30 years before that, and what was your mindset at that time? I'm sure you were not following the same path as your parents were, and so their values are going to be some completely different. Their motivators are going to be completely different from yours. And you want to make sure that you are not putting that same thought process in their head if they don't even have that background knowledge. It's just going to be confusing for them and they're not going to be available to handle that. What's their actual next best step? Honestly, who knows? You know, go back and talk to them. It goes back to what we just talked about before. What is their next best step? It's whatever we think is going to be it. Let's find out what that is. Whether, hey, does Johnny really want to go to college right after high school? Does he want to learn how to drive? Does he want to just go straight to the workforce? Does he want to go into the military? If he does, what branch does he want to go to? Let's go explore those. Let's get in the car and let's go check it out. Those kind of things is what you give some hands-on guidance on, and that really makes a difference on how you're going to be helping them moving on from, this mindset to this mindset and not putting your own judgment on it because that makes it so hard and difficult for them because they're not seeing it the same perspective that you're seeing it. Encourage reflection or reaction, hitting them with the judgment of I'm getting mad that you don't know what the heck you're going to be doing, or I'm going to be mad at whatever this is coming up in your head. Encourage the reflection pieces. It's so huge because remember, their frontal lobe is not developed yet, and when you're sitting there with them and you're just trying to guide that reflection piece, like, hey, what did you think about that drive when we went to go check out that college today? What was your thoughts on this? Did you like how far it was from home? Did you like the idea of the campus? Or, hey, when we went to go check out that military, recruiter today, did you like what they had to offer? Did you like this will be your life for the next 5 to 10 years. Are you okay with that? Like, what does this look like when you start expanding the versions of what they think they're going to be versus who they are? And can they fit into those shoes that they're reflecting on? That's a big piece on that. And you want to make sure that they're able to handle that as much as possible. So we'll keep going. Letting go to grow. What no longer serves us. Old routines, unhealthy roles, limiting beliefs, letting go, make space for the independence. So, old routines, okay? Though that's just what they are. They're old. They no longer work. They no longer serve you. You need to just be done with it and stop getting stuck on old things because they're not going to be helpful for the next steps in their life. Whatever you guys did when they were in elementary school, preschool, middle school, high school, it's done. It's done. It's fried out. We need to be done with it because it's no longer going to work in the role in the life that they're going to be living in now. Unhealthy roles. What I mean by that is honestly what it says. It's if you have now gone to this place of my young adult is now maybe working part-time at a job and they hang out with their friends, but I think that is unhealthy that, they're not doing these certain things or whatever. You need to let them be able to live the life that they need to live with expectations. That's the biggest piece there. You want healthy expectations because it is, your house that they're living at home, or it's the car that you bought them and you're still paying some major bills. I understand expectations are there as a guide for everyone to live by. However, you want to make sure you don't cross that line of, overbearing parent and then you lose their trust all completely. And then they're not interested in wanting to go into those next pieces. It's just really strong for them. And then limiting their belief system of whatever it is that they're believing at that time. Again, that goes into that same concept what I just talked about. Because then you're going to lose their buy-in. You want to be, yes, do you want to be their friend? Yes, but you also want to be that mentor that they see right? Because you're going from you're a parent always, but you want to make sure that you're going into this as this person who's their coach, who's their mentor, someone that they want to guide to, someone who they can talk to, reflect on, and not limit the world that they already have as a limited view as it is. Even with social media and all these things, their world is still so limited because they still don't understand all the big concepts that are going to be coming at them. And there's so much that is coming. So let go, make space for independence. You want them to be able to live a life that's safe, first off, but you want to make sure that they are exploring and learning things because this is how they will be able to figure things out. This is how they problem solve. Problem solving skills are such a hard concept for our generations now because they have not had those moments to sit there and learn. I will go ahead and reflect on a few different things for myself. I remember being little and I had a really hard time learning how to read and being able to understand even math comprehension and strategy sometimes. And so my dad would take me to the grocery store and he would have me read each item that he was about to buy. And then I had to sit there and think about the math and think about the sale that was going on. And it will help me with strategizing and figuring out, oh, well, but this is a good deal versus that's a better deal. So maybe if we were to buy 10 of those, that ends up being a better deal than if you had just bought one. Anyways, long story short, it's just a way on how you kind of build that independence without them even realizing it, because you're giving them some opportunities with growth. That's the idea behind all of this, but you're just expanding it to an adulthood style. So, reframing success. Success isn't a checklist. So, we have emotional maturity, self advocacy, and progress over perfection. Their version of independence can look different and still be right. So, again, this is something that I'm just talking really hounding hard on in this webinar is that, independence can look different. Independence doesn't necessarily need to be a certain version of what you think it may have to be. It one day it could be just that emotional maturity. Are they able to emotionally handle their own emotions, whether they're angry, whether they're sad, whether they're, happy, and you want them to be happy always, but it's okay to have all those other emotions too tied to it because life is hard and you're going to have these ups and downs and waves, but are they able to emotionally mature, maturity or the mature part be able to handle that? Are they going to be able to hold those concepts? Are they going to be able to, self-advocate? Such a huge thing, especially in high school. This is a great thing to even teach middle school to high school because self-advocacy is such a hard piece when it comes to negotiating for themselves, being able to handle, talking to people at work, being able to handle bosses, being able to handle conflict resolution or even family dynamics. It's such a huge piece there because sometimes if they have the self-doubt in their head, they're definitely going to have, self-advocacy issues. And you want them to be able to self-advocate for themselves when you're not around because you're not always going to be around, So those are going to be things that you want to be able to talk about and help others. Progress over perfection. Let it go, people. I can't tell you enough. Let it go. It's not worth it because perfection is just it's another thing that doesn't exist either. You're putting yourself in this anxiety bubble that doesn't need to happen. You want to be able to progress and that's the key. Progress, 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 progress. Just keep on trying your best that you can. It doesn't have to be a perfect solution. It doesn't have to be this perfect rhyme. It doesn't have to look as a perfect way. And this is coming from me. And this is hard because for me, for a very long time, I had a perfectionism issue because I thought everything had to check so many boxes before I can even execute something. Or even if I had people come to my house, I had to have it perfect because I don't want to be judged. Like it's a hard thing to let go. I still struggle with this. However, it's progress over perfection in any capacity, whatever that looks like. As long as there's being progress made, then that's the key to all of this. So, what parents can do from control to coaching, reflect, don't react, support progress, not perfection, and ask how I can support you and not fix it. You want to go back, go back, go back, go back. So if you feel like you have been controlling all these situations, go back to the beginning and restart, reestablish your relationship from the beginning, and just say, hey, I want a fresh start into all of this. If you guys have been struggling with communication, struggling with figuring things out together, just start over again. Be like, hey, time to press pause and let's rewind this whole thing, reflect on what has gone bad, reflect on what has gone good, right? And take that from control to coaching and be like, hey, I'm just still trying to learn this myself. And it's okay, but just go back into that and let's try to figure this out together. It's all about that problem solving skills. It's all about showing that progress set. And it's all about, hey, how can I help you? How can I support you? I want to be a guide for you. However, I'm not going to fix every problem for you, because again, you want independence and you want them to learn independence and feel good about it. So you're going to let that go and let them figure things out because you are the guide, not the driver. Okay. So take action. So, one thing I would love for you guys to do and take with you is I want you to release one expectation, whatever expectation that could possibly be for your young adult, for yourself, for your family, for your dynamic that is going on at home. Just release it. Whatever that one thing, it doesn't have to be everything, but that one thing that you think is holding you guys back, or maybe the one thing that you feel like you can honestly let go if you have control issues, let go of it for 1 week. I want you to just let it go. And then I want you to start one growth focused conversation. So think of something that you guys can focus on together as a unit, whether that is as a family as a whole, maybe it's just you and your young adult, maybe it's just your young adult that comes up with it. But one focused item, whether that's, hey, I want Johnny to be able to make his own doctor's appointment this week so that way he can get his physical next month. And you let go of that. All you do is just provide Johnny with the insurance card if they don't have it and be done with it. And make sure that that's their one focus item for the week. If that's what it is, if that's what your goal is. I'm not saying that that's what it has to be. I'm just saying that that's one example of a focused combo that you can have. Like, I want you to be able to make your own appointments for your doctor's appointments and be done with it if that's what it is. Reflect and then reflect after. Reflect what's your young adult ready for and not just what's ideal. So if they can't handle calling the doctors and you know that they can't handle calling the doctors and it's going to be this huge obstacle of anxiety and all that, then okay, let's go back to the drawing board and find out where they can handle. So maybe it's a laundry issue as an example. Maybe they need to be able to wash their clothes and you're not the one who's telling them, hey, Johnny, I need you to go wash your clothes on Monday. Make sure that it's all done and out of the dryer by Tuesday, and then make sure all your clothes are put away. If they're 19, 20 years old, you should not have to be doing that. However, if that's where your young adult is at the moment, and that's ideal as the problem and the solution that you want to work on, then that's the one that you want to focus on for the week. So one expectation you let go of, one growth conversation, but please make sure that you include your young adult in this conversation because it's key. From the beginning, you're going to tell them, hey, I'm going to let go of this week. Can you please take this on? You want them to be a part of that whole process, okay? So do not make this as a conversation of, hey, this is what I need you to be doing. If you don't do this, then this is what, because that's not where this conversation needs to be going. Remember, it's growth, not reaction, and we're going to let go of those pieces. And so that is my main point for my webinar today. I just want to make sure you guys are learning how to communicate with each other, cutting those barriers, and just working as a family unit, and also that coaching guide as they go into their next endeavors in life. And this is my resources. I would love for you to follow me. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I'm trying to get TikTok going, and I have my YouTube channel. So please follow that. It is below. I was trying to find out how to point to it. I'm not that good at this yet, but these are all my resources. I'm also going to have this will also be as a replay on my website. So if anyone has missed this event today, that's okay. I'm going to put this on my website, but I'm also going to be adding a toolkit that goes with this, and you can purchase this on my website as well, and you'll get a copy of our slideshow for today along with the video that I posted, and then you'll get a toolkit that you can also use with your young adult, and you guys can use it as a collaborative piece with talking with each other. So that will be available on my website here shortly. And then please join my newsletter. Every month I share some new stuff with you guys, some new tips, tricks, and some new things going on with me and my life and everything going on with my business. It's just been such a wonderful journey that I've been on, and I just love to share with everyone who is a follower of mine. I also will share 2 blogs every month. Typically, I try to be really good about the blogs, but typically I share about either 1 to 2 blogs a month. And yeah, and just follow me on socials and get to know me. If you guys have any questions, please reach out. And I appreciate you guys joining me today. Have a great rest of your Sunday and a wonderful week and enjoy the spring. Bye.